We have often heard the statement, "It takes a village." Originally, the context for that phrase was that it is an African proverb that refers to raising children. Thus, it takes a village or a community to raise a child. Nowadays, it's applied to other things, and I'm going to use it today for my own purposes, but I don't think I am totally out of line. It takes a village to express our creativity. We live in an extremely individualistic society, and we often forget how individualistic we are. But when it comes to creativity, the expression of it is more social than we realize. Even if we do some of our creativity, or most of it in solitude, and I know I do as a writer, we need other people. We need them for encouragement, training, and audience and response. This is the second time I've interviewed an organization as well as people. This episode is about the Creative Arts Guild of Dalton, Georgia, a group I have known about, visited, and indirectly worked with for several years. It has a storied history, and we are going to hear about it and its work today. Stay tuned. Our primary guest today is Amanda Brown, Executive Director of the Creative Arts Guild of Dalton. Welcome to the podcast, Amanda.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I would like to start with your story. How did you come to the Creative Arts Guild?
Well, my first experience in the Creative Arts Guild was probably around 2 years old. I took Suzuki piano lessons here and then led on to dance lessons and other music lessons and art lessons. So I grew up in and around the Guild. My family moved here when I was 2 years old. So it's probably one of the first places they brought me. My mom was from the South Birmingham area. My dad was from New York. But they were moving here from Syracuse after Dad came out of medical school, and they were looking at a lot of communities, but they chose Dalton because of the Creative Arts Guild. My dad wanted somewhere where they could start a pediatric practice. It really needed him. And so he looked at several different cities. And Dalton was one that needed more pediatricians. And my mom was one of the first OTs in the state, occupational therapy. So they were looking for somewhere to start a medical practice, but both of them loved and appreciated the arts and kind of used that as their medicine, which I'll come back to throughout the years as kind of an outlet for them. My dad was a musician. My mom was an artist. So they chose Dalton based on the Creative Arts Guild. So I was involved a lot as a kid. And then all the way up through, I showed some work in the galleries in high school and things like that through Dalton High School art department. And then I went to school. So I went off to Swanee. And when it became time for me to choose what direction I was going to choose, that was hard because I really had focused a lot on dancing and a lot on visual arts. And so I had little mini scholarships to different places for those things. But really, when it came down to it, I decided that there was something that put everything all together. It gave me an outlet to feel if I wanted to paint, I could still do the sets and the props and things like that if I wanted to. And there would be an opportunity for choreography and performance there. And of course, I just loved the exploration of acting, and really it becomes an exploration of yourself and as an artist too. So there was sound and music was all tied in. So I got a degree in theater arts from Swanee. And after that, my husband and I took a small detour to the woods. He had graduated from Swanee with a forestry degree, and we knew that we were very connected. But at that point at 19, we're like, what do we do? Do we move across the country and, plan our jobs around each other? We were just so new at. So we ran away to the woods and we did a 6-month hike through the Appalachian Trail. So we started on that. So that was our little detour. But at that point, we said, okay, if we can hike from Maine to Georgia, pretty much hand in hand, I think we can do this life thing together. So at that point, we both actually came back to Dalton for the remainder of that year. It was just like 6 more months. And he interned with a local law firm here. And I came over to visit one of my friends who was teaching at the dance department at the time. And the director at the time, Terry Tomasello, said, well, Amanda, you need to come work here. And I said, okay, I would love to. And I was just blown away by that offer. So I taught some visual arts classes. I taught some dance classes. But the main reason, and I actually started a few theater classes. At the time, I didn't have a department. I just did a few classes, which I really, really enjoyed and gave me some creative outlet there. But one of the main reasons is Westwood did not have an art teacher at the time. So they hired me to come in and basically be art on the cart through the Creative Arts Guild. So they contracted with the guild. So I pushed a cart around and taught all of the K through 5, pre-K through 5th grade art over there for the year. And so I did that for a school year. And at the end of the school year, my husband and I got engaged, and he got into law school at the University of Denver. So we moved on. So for 8 years in Colorado, I taught in theater conservatory out there called Rocky Mountain Theater for Kids. And it was a real beautiful conservatory, honestly, for 6-year-olds all the way through 18. And each age group had their own company. Like you would have a pre-professional dance company. This was a theater company, and they would go to class 3 to 4 times a week, depending on their age. And we would do performances each year. And in the summer, we put on really, really big productions. So I did that for 8 years, and I also taught some dance classes at a local studio out there as well. And then at that point, I had kind of a personal situation happen. My dad kind of had an unexpected and untimely death. And I came back home to kind of resurface our family. And long story short, I was here for about 6 months during that time. And then I went back to Denver. When I went back to Denver, I told my husband, I don't know that I can just jump back in the same way we were doing. I need to do something different. I wasn't sure what that was. So one day he came home from work and I said, well, I applied to grad school. And he said, you did? And I just, University of Denver, where he had gone, had an arts administration degree. And I thought, I really, want to kind of learn the business side of the arts too. And I feel like there's no better when you come to a spot of, of uncertainty or anything in your life, or even just monotony. It's time for some more education is kind of how I always view that. So that really reinvigorated me. I learned a lot about the arts and even like the management of the fundraising aspects that nobody wants to talk about. Like, okay, we have to pay for this and how do we do it? But I learned from some really influential people to me. And so that was a great program. And by the time I graduated, we had our first child. And funny thing is, someone asked my mom one day, what's Amanda doing? I've lost touch with her. And it was the same person who had brought me in to do the Westwood job. And she was in on the board of the Creative Arts Guild. And my mom said, oh, well, she's graduating with her arts administration degree. And they said, well, we're looking for a new director. So can you send me that? And I said, sure, I'll give them my resume, but I'm 32. Like that I didn't think that was in the cards for me. And long story short, I went through a long interview process and I was hired for the job. And so because of the guild, it's all exciting. And yeah, I've been here now. It'll be 10 years in November. Oh, well, right. I've been here a little bit, and it was such a pure joy to return back to a community. Because I told my husband too, I said, I want to bring the arts to a place that really needs it or appreciates it. I said, I'm not sure that I'm interested in just, this is the wrong word, but I'm not sure that I'm interested in competing against, lots of different arts where it's really inundated with that. Like, that's not what's interesting to me. What's interesting to me is to bring something to an area that really can use it in new infusion and of different worldly arts. So I've really, really enjoyed being here. And then most recently, as you see, I've been here at the Guild, like I said, for 10 years. The first steps of it were not what I expected. I thought I would come in and right away be doing new programming and new ideas in that way. But when I got here, what I realized is the organization was really in some ways tired and from a ground level, like from the governance level, from the board level, the board had been running the organization for 9 months between directors. So there was the staff was, everyone just needed a new energy on that level. So a lot of the work I did in the first 5 years was, let's look at our bylaws, let's look at our governance and how we structure our board. Let's look at our fundraising and our financial status, and let's improve that, because that was a little bit of a struggle too, because the Guild really had not recovered from the 2008 recession when I came here in 2014. It still was not really where it needed to be. So we looked at a lot of things and reinvented the wheel almost everything from an organizational level. And that really was the first 5 years or so. And then after that, that was really, really solid. And, I think at that point, once you know that your core is solid, it's so much easier to fundraise and tell the donors and the supporters, the sponsors in the community that, you support the Creative Arts Guild. Every bit of everything you give here is going to go to exactly where you want it to go and do good things in our community. And so since then, we've never looked back. We've been able to now do a lot of new programming. We've brought in new events and a lot of the stuff that's out in the community. The concerts every Friday night, we've been a part of those since, year two, the convention center started them. And we've just grown some really beautiful partnerships that will either grown on them, the ones that have been existed for years, and then some new ones. And the most recent one is right before the pandemic. So because of my family's medical background, I've always had a love for arts and medicine, like how the two pair. And to me, they're natural. And if you look back through lots of different cultures, ancient cultures, the arts have been used for healing and for wellness and for self-care for, a long, many, many years. So it's always been something that's just been innate to me or, natural to me. But I realized, talking to people, there are questions as to how, or, what's the data that supports this. So I knew that we wanted to start a partnership with a hospital. And that same person who pulled me onto the board now works over at the hospital foundation office and was interested in and knew that I had an interest. So she and I started talking, and then our little group grew, and we had a group of 4 of us that were really interested in doing this partnership, 3 from the Hamilton setting, and then myself. And we were lucky enough to go and tour a program at University of Florida Shands Hospital. They have a beautiful arts and medicine is what they call it, their program. And the whole weekend we toured it, I was just in tears and just like, I've got to do this program. I've got to do this program. And they said, Amanda, you don't need to do this program. You've got everything you need. Let's just, go back home and do it. But there was something that just really drew me from everything I saw, and the way that the artists were so naturally folding in with the healthcare providers and professionals. It just was, and then to see what was happening with the patients when they're there receiving, a song while they're getting an infusion treatment that's uncomfortable, or coming in to a child who's been waiting in the PICU for months, waiting on a heart, just to go in and do some, visual arts programming with them. So we came back and we were all ready to start a program here. And then the pandemic came across. Okay, well, clearly we're not going to start any new programs. So in that time, that pandemic pause, as I call it, I took that opportunity to go back to school through the University of Florida. I did it online here, but I got a master's in arts and medicine from the University of Florida. So just this January, the Creative Arts Guild has started a program at the hospital doing arts and health. And right now we're at Anna Shaw Children's Institute and People's Cancer Institute. We're going to move into long-term care, and then hopefully eventually bedside, to everyone who needs it. So we've got a group of artists and residents now. That's kind of the long-winded version of my story and my connection with the Guild. But it's just been kind of this weaving thing for many, many years. But it's truly, it's pleasure work for me to be able to come and that's some of that community stuff is like, we have all these educational departments that are here under our roof, and they're all just really, really beautiful programs. But even beyond that, like some of the things that we can do just by connecting the arts into some of our community partners is just, I don't know, I think really, really just powerful stuff, using art for what art can do.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that answered a lot of questions that I had planned, but it also opened a whole lot more things that we can talk about. So it's interesting that you brought up the issue that your parents came here because there was an arts community started already, and I've heard that recently. The new president of our college, well, he's been there a year, he mentioned that when it comes to bringing in new people into the community, new professionals, new industries, et cetera, that one of the things they look at is, I would not have thought of this, but they look at what is the arts community going on. And it seems that Dalton, for the size of it, has a robust community, more than I think people would expect.
Absolutely. And I think the foundation of the guild and the history of the guild, I think, had a lot to do with that. So the guild was founded in 1963.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, the carpet industry was really kind of picking up, and they were needing new executives. At that time, they were hiring executives, and they were all men at that time, right? So they were hiring men to come in from Chicago, New York City, these big cities. And the wives would say, we're moving where and what kind of cultural experience are my kids going to experience? So honestly, because the carpet industry was bringing in people that were coming from cities that had cultural landscapes that were really, really robust, the expectation of the Creative Arts Guild arts has always rivaled that of larger cities, because the expectation from the people who were founding it and starting it, they were looking at big cities and what they had. They weren't looking just to start some art classes. They were really looking to, bring in the best of the best. And, so the standard of the arts has always been a really, really high quality standard. And I even read back through some of Bernice Spiegel, the founding executive director of the Creative Arts Guild, Bernice Spiegel. I went back. She had some memoirs that she had written, and I found a few things over the years. It's been really fun. But there was one that really, really struck me, and it was talking about kind of the beginnings of the guild and how it was tied to the carpet industry, this kind of story. But somehow they had it worked out where the carpet trucks would leave with all the carpet on it to take it to the cities, and in time would come back with art to show on the walls of the Creative Arts Guild. And some of these kind of partnerships and exchanges that really, really kind of speak to how influential our industry was to the arts, and how they saw it as important too, to attract people to come and live and work here as well. So I really attribute the standard that the Guild has to that. And even when I was doing all my time out in Denver, it was really funny towards the end of my degree. So that was like 13, 14. A lot of some of my degree was in person. Some of it was online. So I was able to connect with people from all over the country that were pursuing arts administration. And so they were seeing it all. And a lot of my peers were talking about this new trend of multi-disciplinary arts programming. And I said, not new for Dalton. Dalton's had the Creative Arts Guild since 1963. So I think the founders of the Guild and what their vision for the organization was really, really set the Guild up to be something that's long-standing and relevant because of the quality of what they wanted to portray and experience here, and then also the diversity of the arts that they wanted under one roof.
Yeah. So, speaking of that, then what is, on paper, the mission of the Guild?
So the mission of the Creative Arts Guild is to cultivate and sustain the arts in Dalton and our surrounding counties, communities. So to cultivate and sustain.
Okay. And how far but is surrounding?
So that's a good question. I think for many, many years, everyone saw, and the Creative Arts Guild was Northwest Georgia for many, many years, and even as Northeast in general. I think much to the success of the Guild, and this is where we went and reworked our mission statement. Within those years, I told you, we just did everything from the ground up. But I think largely because of the success of the Creative Arts Guild, the arts are here. So when the Guild was founded, it really was the only one in the entire region that did what we do. Now, there are so many organizations. There's organizations in Dalton, too, that teach certain disciplines of the art or have an arts focus. And I think that, again, because of the success of the Guild, a lot of this is spun out from the Guild's umbrella over the years. There's also a whole lot in Chattanooga that never was really there. And in Atlanta and everywhere beyond that, of course, some of those have been before and after, but a lot of what the Guild was doing on a broad scale, there's been other organizations that have popped up to do so. So in doing that, that's when we kind of pulled our mission closer in. But there's still a lot that we do. And so, like, for sure, we do, Whitfield and Murray County. We do a lot of stuff with the school system. So that kind of gets us, Dalton City, Whitfield County, Murray County schools. We do a lot with them. So we really do focus a lot of our energy in that direction. But with that said, I don't want to limit us to that, because what we're doing, a lot of the shows we show in the gallery, a lot of the concerts we're doing downtown, and certainly our vision of what we want to continue to, our sculpture garden, what we have here on our premises is a sculpture garden. It was one of the first of its kind in the state of Georgia, and really one of the largest in our region. So there are these things that we do that really can, and already do, attract people from way out of town. I mean, people pass through and stop here for these things. And so our vision is definitely to continue to cultivate that and to grow that as much as we can, to continue to partner, because we do have great relationships with the other arts organizations in other cities, directly around this. So we don't want to limit ourselves just here, but we definitely are focused on the people who live here and bringing arts to our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really, one word that keeps coming up is partnerships. And one of the things during this episode, but another theme I have, is that creativity is not an individualistic thing. It's not something you can go off in a corner and do by yourself. And that's obviously true here, because this is I just walked in, there were people, there's energy, it's people, doing stuff. And it's a community, it's a partnership. So who do you have some partnerships with that you can mention?
Well, I love that. And I'll come back to collaboration too, because I think partnership and collaboration, and I think they're both very, very important. But we've done a lot of things, as you said, with Dalton State College for many years. We also, like Hamilton Medical Center and Hamilton Healthcare System, I guess it's all system that we have a partnership with. Dalton Public Schools, Whitfield County Schools, Murray County Schools. The partnership with the Owen Jonas Foundation is one of our oldest and longest, and that takes artist residencies into schools and supplements the arts curriculum.
Say that again.
So the Owen Jonas Foundation.
Okay.
The Creative Arts Guild, one of its first partnerships was with the Oscar and Jonas Foundation. And it's been in existence for 55 years probably, because the Guild's 60. It was one of the earliest ones. And we partner to bring artist residencies into the schools. So the foundation raises the funds to support the payments for the artists, and we do all the administrative, and we raise our funds to support the staffing for the administrative piece of that. So whether it's performances that go into schools or a hands-on artist that goes and works with individual classrooms. And then we also do field trips through that program. That program has been one of the deepest and most robust. We have a wonderful relationship with Cross Plains Community Partners. We do things with them. And then our partnership with the Dalton Convention Center and Visitors Bureau, Downtown Dalton Development Authority, and the Community Foundation of Northwest Georgia. We partner to develop the Off the Rails Summer Entertainment Series. Mm-hmm. So all those concerts and partnerships there. We've also done a whole lot with Believe Greater Dalton and the Chamber of Commerce here in Dalton. We and our staff were instrumental in helping kind of to launch the initial, grateful that they do every year. And then a lot of others, we wrote a grant together to share a marketing person and to work on what the marketing looks like for our community. And to bring, even the development of Burr Park, that was a partnership with a lot of area businesses and communities or leaders that got together and developed the idea for a gathering space. Dalton State was part of that. Mm-hmm. Mary was part of that piece. And anyway, we came up with this concept for the spot downtown. And that idea was what was shared with Miss Jean Burr, who ended up donating the funds to develop what the park is now. So, I mean, we try to say we have a great partnership with Thrive in Chattanooga and with Artsville in Chattanooga. We've done things with different groups there. So we try to, remain open and if someone comes with an idea of a partnership, I usually say yes first until we figure out if it can't work and why. But saying yes to that, I think, is really important. And, what you said about the arts not being something you go off and do alone. to me, that's one of the best things that the Creative Arts Guild did is this multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary concept where everything's under one roof. And that's why I went into theater. It wasn't necessarily because I wanted to be able to say be an actor. It was because I loved the collaboration and like the community that's built. And also, I just think more minds are always better than one. And we do a whole series here called Art Talking to Art. So, for instance, if we have a gallery exhibit up, we have literary artists come in and everyone chooses a piece of art and writes either a short story or a poem based on it. And then they perform it at the gallery opening. We've done that with our dancers where they're inspired by visual art or where they're inspired by music. And some of the best collaborations I've seen are when the different art forms are happening simultaneously and influencing each other. And for that reason, we've developed this kind of artist support system called Creative Circle. And this was one that we got really excited about before COVID, and it got kind of shut down, and we're like, time to bring energy back into it. But where we have different groups that form, whether it's a visual arts group or a literary arts group, and they have each other, because a lot of times your work is done in a vacuum if you're a writer or if you're a painter, but then you come together and you get feedback from each other and share resources. Now, one of the best new things that came out of something like that, one of our groups is the arts educators. So when we decided one of our mission points was that we wanted to support, and when we decided that one of our mission points was to really support working artists in our area, one of the greatest groups of those are arts educators. So many years ago, we gathered a bunch of arts educators together and said, okay, what are you missing? And these specifically were the schools. So we have zero professional development. I mean, a lot of times what we get is go to this history professional development day and try to, from a humanities perspective, fold it back into art, which is very good in its own right. But what they were missing is, I was trained as a painter, but I teach art. So I need to know how to do play as well. And the things like that. So we developed Creative Connections, which is a full day professional development day that we do each year for Dalton Public, Whitfield County, Murray County school teachers, band, choral, performing arts, theater, visual art. They all come together and they have vertical teaming and horizontal teaming, because that conversation of what happens to a child in each of our districts from K through 12 in the arts, that really wasn't happening. So like, well, when they come to sixth grade in middle school, I want them to have experienced this in elementary school. So we were able to do that. And then also, let's talk about elementary across all districts and how can we share resources, and the same for secondary. We were able to have those conversations as well. And I think it's really built a stronger community within our arts educators. And definitely one of the biggest things was to be, water in their well or fuel in their engine to kind of reinvigorate some energy behind them. So if this is just because it inspires you as an artist again, you're an artist first. Let's do that, because that will influence the students. So that's been a great pleasure and joy that's come out of that.
That's amazing. And I don't think that people who drive past here necessarily know those roots, those fingers are going into so many different areas. I didn't know that you had that the guild had anything to do with Off the Rails or, some other things. So, for example, this summer, what's going on right now?
Well, right now there's in this building right now, there's a couple different, you have a 3 and 4 year old, a multidisciplinary camp, a culinary arts camp, and then we're going to watercolor for teens. So we have 4 educational departments within the building, and it's visual arts, dance, music, and culinary arts. Now we offer classes and workshops for those at all ages, all through the year. And of course, in the summer, we get to do all day summer camps and things, which is extra fun. Mm-hmm. Each year we put on about 6 community events. The most recent one we just finished was Pops in Burke Park just last weekend. And then we have a spring sculpture garden event. Of course, we have our annual festival of fine arts and crafts, which is every September. We really enjoyed some partnerships we've had in the Latinx community. We've developed Dia de los Muertos, which has been, that was a holiday I didn't know a whole lot about. And over the years, through some great friends that have established through the development of this event, I've learned how beautiful it is. And really that is a holiday that no matter who you are, what your cultural background is, we can all identify with, because the whole event is really just based around celebrating those that we've loved, that we've lost, and everyone can identify with that. And of course, we have our annual Snow Queen. We have a full orchestra that's been performing with the Snow Queen for many years now. And that's the one that once we got Snow Queen up and going, we said, okay, let's also have a orchestral Pops and Bird Park.
And where is that performed?
So the Snow Queen is performed at Dalton High School Theater this year.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. And we have our orchestra there. And that is just a beautiful, ballet was created from the ground up by our dance department here. So it's not an existing ballet that was lifted off the shelf. Oh. The score was kind of put together with compilations of public domain music that were kind of originally cut into just a recorded. So when it came time for us to dream about an orchestra, before we even could do that, we had to score the thing. So we had to find someone who was willing to sit with where the cuts and pastes of all these public domain orchestra and score them all for the same instruments across the board. And so it was a year process just to do that. And then, of course, we have about 35 musicians that play in that orchestra. And it really was a beautiful thing to bring to life. And again, another way to marry multiple art forms. And now we have this live ballet performances performed to a live orchestra, which you don't often see in a community like Dalton. So those are the kinds of quality and the vibrancy that the Guild has really had the vision to bring since day one. And we're lucky to be able to still do that today. And I think a lot of that is due to our community support systems and sponsors and people who really do value the arts and who do see the arts as influential. For instance, talk about economic development. I've talked to a lot of people after Pops and Bird Park. There were about 4,000 people who came to that event downtown.
Wow.
And every single business that I've talked to said they doubled or, their business that night was highly influenced by the traffic that was brought to downtown. Mm-hmm. And nobody came downtown for any other reason except for to come see that artistic happening in the evening. So that's kind of the value of investing in the arts in our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the, okay, I have a producer. She'll cut my blah, blah out.
Hopefully.
So in the fall, you have planned the big September. It'll be this 61st anniversary.
It will feel, yeah, first festival. And this year, I was trying to make sure I have the dates. I think it's the 19th, 21st. But it's always the third full weekend of September.
Okay.
We have a huge gathering. So then the 20th, 21st, and 22nd of this September. And that is just a weekend long celebration of all the arts. And we have musical performances all throughout the weekend. We have dance performances. We have multicultural performances that come in. We also have a large selection. We also have a large selection of artists who set up booths and have an outdoor artist market downstairs. And these artists come kind of all over really the region. There's some that come further away than that, but certainly our region. And then, so we have the outdoor artist market. We have the indoor gallery exhibit, which is a huge juried exhibit with many, many pieces. I can't remember how many we hung on the wall last year, but we hang them pretty much floor to ceiling and so much variety of work that it's hard to walk away from that show without finding something that you need to take home with you. We have a children's area that does a lot of hands-on activities and, of course, our performance tents and then food tenders. Mm-hmm. So it's a weekend long full celebration of all that we do.
Where do you put them?
Exactly. All over this campus. All the artists go underneath the building so that they're protected from any rain that could come our way, which sometimes it usually rains at least an hour or two during festival weekend, and it works out just fine. But all throughout the grass, all throughout our parking lot, it's really just a big, big celebration.
Okay. If you were, well, here's a question. How do you decide what to hold or support here?
A very good question.
Because you could do so much that it would maybe be spreading yourselves too thin, perhaps.
Right. And I think that we probably have tiptoed onto that, tightrope a couple of times as well. So I think there's kind of a natural interest level. I mean, one of the things we kind of look at when we look at a evaluation of our programs and events, we look at relevancy and participation and interest in the community. And there are times where there's something is waxing or learning here a little bit. I think we also look at, the pillars of how important is it to our mission to do these things. For instance, running a gallery doesn't always financially support the Guild in the strongest way, but we feel like running a gallery and keeping visual arts here year round is really, really important. So we find other ways to support that financially in order to keep it stable. So, that, and then also, what's within our wheelhouse. Now we've added to our staff greatly since the time I've been here for sure. And there are so many people out in this community that have been a part of the Guild staffing in some way over the years. But I also look at what is our area of expertise and do we have, the credentials to really do that and do it well. So I think, some of it's logistic. Let's look at our calendar. Okay, there's no way right now that we could do anything else in September, October, and November unless we really decided that was important. We wanted to get it clean. And we did let go of an event that we've had for 10 years this year. We had Low Country Bowl for many, many years, and it was a wonderful event. But it became harder and harder to produce. It was very heavily dependent on having teams participate in the competition. So that was one that it was just time to give it a rest. Now it could have, out of popular demand, it could come back again. But we also had organically developed this Pops in Burr Park, which was just a few weeks difference in timing of producing these two events. And this one immediately gathered thousands of people. It's like, okay, well, there's a real interest in that. So why don't we let go of our Low Country Bowl this year, put effort into, and we were depending on Low Country Bowl as a little bit of a fundraiser. So this year at Pops, while the event itself is still free, we sold hamburgers and hot dogs and glow sticks and things like that to maybe help support some of the financial things. So it really is a give and take. I think each year we don't take it for granted that, we've done this for X amount of years, so we're going to continue doing it. Yeah. I think every program and every event, especially the events, they have a lifespan. Yes. And it's important to look, okay, well, maybe here's the lifespan of this event and it's kind of waning. If we do this new thing, we could elevate the event again. So sometimes it's just taking the event and looking at it differently. And then sometimes it's set down and we just walk away and do something different.
I think that's a big part of leadership and creativity is that just because you've done something for 10 or 20 years doesn't mean that it really needs to keep going, then that sounds defeatist in a sense, but things change, people change. And I know that COVID probably impacted you guys massively because I know it has for us as far as getting students and the community out to anything we do theatrically or musically. Sometimes we have a good turnout and sometimes it's just not been good to get people physically somewhere.
Absolutely. They definitely, the whole year of the first year of COVID, we canceled a lot of events, we changed them and we had to re-envision what that looks like. And, we got to live that social distancing in the theater experience and how to bring an orchestra together. And we did lose one year with an orchestra and we felt like we could safely do it. We were preparing for it, but up until that week, we had a few people get sick and it just wasn't worth bringing everyone together. So we had to let go of a lot of things. And to that point, even programming. So we used to have a gymnastics department. The gymnastics department really was originally developed as a tumbling department. It was a theater program in its original version. It was a theater program for the dance department. You could come and do 30 minutes of each. But out of interest, it developed into much more. At the time, we had the expertise and that grew. And so we had a whole facility that was dedicated. We moved our dancers out to that. And during COVID, we did take that opportunity to kind of pull that one back. But there were a few reasons for that. The interest that kind of boomed coming off of, I guess it was, I forget which Olympics it was before me. But there was an Olympics that happened the year that they opened the gym and it was just booming. But really what that one came down to for me is I think that one became a good program for the Guild because it was financially stable and supported in that way. when you're running an organization like this, you do kind of have to look at these different pillars, and everyone's going to have a different financial stability within those pillars. But what we're looking at is the bottom line. How do we make sure they all support each other and that we build a strong organization as a whole? But this one that was really there mostly because it was a financially strong pillar, wasn't as financially strong anymore. The expense of running a program like that is huge. And then making sure you have the right expertise to run it is a one other thing. And I think what got me the biggest, though, I think, was that it's slightly outside of our mission. I mean, not that I can make the argument that gymnastics is some form of artistry, because I do believe it is. I think it's very connected to performance art and to dance and all these things. But because it was slightly outside of our mission, it was no longer financially viable. And because there were other people in our community doing that well, that were willing to take the reign and do that, that was a big conversation. And what it did is it allowed space to bring our dancers home, because we really were in a space that large because of gymnastics. Mm-hmm. We did lose one gallery by bringing our dancers home. But what we gained in the strength of our organization and bringing everyone back under one roof and having that interactive, like having the dancers back in our space again, naturally leads to more conversations. I mean, to me, that piece about arts being partnerships and collaboration, we were existing in two different buildings. So half our staff didn't talk to the other staff on a daily basis. And to me, that was a really big problem. Mm-hmm. And just what happens naturally on your way to the coffee pot or, anywhere else in the building, this conversation of, hey, I had this experience in class today or with my students today or with this. And mm-hmm. it leads to some really, really exciting things. So, I mean, as much as, as this world changes to we can work from home and all that, our work and we can write our grants and we can do that stuff from home. But absolutely, the arts are about connectivity of people in person. And so that stems from our staff. So we need to live and breathe together on a daily basis to then share that with the community, invite others in. And to that point, when we talk about even our events and things that we do in the community, I do talk to our staff about this. I said, people come to the creative arts field to be creative. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that creativity lands on being on a board, maybe, or being on a committee to plan an event. That's a creative outlet. So, and I say, while sometimes I think our staff can be like, well, we can do it. We can take on more. I try to encourage everyone to be generous about sharing that ownership. Mm-hmm. And it's vulnerable, because that if I do every piece of it, it's going to be done. And I know it's going to be done when I need it done and all the things. But when you open that up and you share the responsibility and you also share the vision and the creativity, if it takes trust and it does take vulnerability, but in the end, you come up with something all the greater. And not just that, but every person that was involved in any part of the process has pure ownership, and the joy that's created from that collaborative happening, it just can't be replaced.
Yeah.
Well, magic.
Yeah. I get the feeling you're pretty much a type A person. And I am too. And that delegation or that sharing, which I like, perhaps calling it sharing is better than calling it delegation, is just hard for some of us. But along with the fact that it creates more stress for you to have too much going on, it doesn't allow other people to grow, and ultimately leadership's about other people growing. So, yeah.
Well, and to that point, I've learned this over the years. I didn't used to feel this way, but I think it's just where I am in the job now and how long I've been here and all the things. A big part of my job, and there's some warning that happens if I'm 100% honest, but a big part of my job is kind of this visioning something, dreaming in it, believing in it, wishing it to be so, working for it to be so. And then when it's established, letting it go and letting other people run it, take it, do it. Yeah. I've felt that with, and I'm just being 100% honest, but I felt that with, honestly, every program in some way, there comes a time and there is a little bit of there's a little bit of I want everyone to take it. I want them to run with it. And at times what they're going to add to it is all the better. But I can't say that I always do it without mourning, letting it go. because I enjoy, it's like a baby, right? You raise this baby before into its adolescence, and then it's someone else's, and it becomes its own animal. And so I've noticed like this pattern. And when I find myself, I'm like, why am I feeling like upset about this? I'm like, it's because it's time for it's being let go. Someone else is there. They're investing in it, and it's time for me to step back. And so I have like a little bit of a mourning period in the next little plan thing. And I'm not there. I'm sure other people feel that.
No, I feel it. Yeah, being chair of a department, especially one that's involving performing arts, one of my babies has been our collaboration with the Georgia Film Academy and our students going there. And that was kind of my baby, my idea. I worked with them. I've been on the board, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm retiring next year, and I have to give that away to someone who has some expertise in that area. And like, I've been so excited about being part of this program, but can't do it forever. So so that's something I'm facing right now. So I understand it perfectly. And it's like anything that you work on creatively. I'm a novelist, and you, at some point, you say, okay, here it is, world. And it's like letting your child go out into the real world, because, they're going to face criticism. It's not yours anymore. It's sad. So,
and that's true about visual art. I mean, like you said, like everything you do, I think a lot of times if people see something for face value, they have a certain feeling about it. But if they understand the story behind it and kind of, then all of a sudden there's a deeper connection. But and I guess my point there is that behind every creative something is that person, and they were trying to communicate something in some way, even if it wasn't even something they were feeling very articulate about. It was just a feeling. I mean, there's communication, and language and expression that happens that,
Yeah. And it's, like you say, there's a person behind it, and there's a story behind it. And there's a lot of stuff we don't necessarily see on the surface. And that is absolutely the Guild, because like I said, people drive by here on Law Street every day and probably say, oh, I wonder where that place is, or, oh yeah, I went to something there, or I wonder who pays for that, or whatever. And don't realize how many people are touched by what you all do. And I think we could sit here and talk about this for a while, but I know you're a busy lady. And so obviously, you're very excited about this. And is there anything else you want to say?
I've had a big reflection because the Guild just celebrated 60 years.
Yes.
And, celebrating 60 years of an organization that was founded in the 60s, 1963. There's a lot. To me, I think the biggest takeaway, we kind of came up with this idea of legacy, and that became our theme for the year. And that truly is what the Guild is. And there's not a single day. This painting that's sitting right next to me, this is a Brittany Spiegel. She, the founding arts executive director here. And I feel her presence. I have a picture I keep over there of her, make sure she watches over my shoulder, make sure I'm doing what she wants me to do daily. But just the legacy of what the Guild has created in our community. And I started using this word, and I can understand how it can be maybe too heavy for what I mean, but I don't know. There is some heaviness in it too. And in a fun way, there's a responsibility that we have to carry, this forward. This is such a gift to have been brought up. And that's people, saying the Guild, people don't even understand what all the Guild does. It is absolutely the story. And to be honest, had I not ever taken on this position, I probably would never understand every piece that the Guild has offered to this community. But it is such a gift. And there's not a single day that I walk in this store that I don't understand that I am on the shoulders of so many people that I've been saying that, all the hands and hearts that have been a part of this organization for all these years, the legacy of the Guild is now in our hands. To carry forward. And I believe that. And I know there's a little bit of a heavy message there, but it's just because it's deep and meaningful. That's the only reason. The work is joyful. The work is just pleasure granting. And not that it's not hard at times. We are physically some of the best. I tracked my steps on Pops in the Park, 28,000 steps in that day. Plus, but it's a labor of love in so many ways. And every person who works here, takes a class here, gets involved here as part of the guild, they feel that. And it's infectious. And I think that's the work of the guild and all the many people that are part of it. It's also just the arts. The arts are infectious. And, a lot of people, I think I'll close on this, though. A lot of people, say, I'm not creative. Arts aren't for me. I'm not artistic. I never got that gene. My question is, are you curious? Do you like to explore? Do you like new ideas and new thoughts? That's all we're doing is creative play, So,
and that's part of being human. Thank you so much. I just love this. And we've been visiting with the Creative Arts Guild of Dalton, Georgia, and talking with Amanda Brown, who's the executive director of the Guild. Thank you for your time, Amanda.
Thanks for including.